The Burning Legion has returned.
Gentlemen, Gears of War, the fourth Gears of War game.
It is a shame they didn't officially call it Gears of War. As a fan of puns, that would have really sold me on this particular iteration of Gears.
We don't talk about Judgment. This is the fourth Gears of War game. At PAX, myself and Scott got to play Horde Mode 3.0.
Yeah.
The latest iteration on Horde Mode. Of course, it's so weird talking about Horde Mode now because it's now like the title of a subgenre or something.
Right.
Or like whereas at the start it was just like Gears was the first one to do it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Or like to formalize.
And it was pretty much an afterthought. I mean, or at least it wasn't forefront of the marketing. It wasn't like,
Totally.
We've got this innovative new multiplayer mode. Come check out. It was like, oh, and there's this thing.
Yeah, it was
and
like
it just caught on.
It was just like a playlist in the multiplayer settings. It was like, do you want deathmatch or do you want? I think it was right, and then there was a horror mode, which is like
it's been a while since I fired up Gears 2, but I remember it like arriving with very little fanfare and growing from there.
Right, and we got to play Horde Mode 3.0, which is
with Rod Ferguson.
We did,
longtime director of Gears, which was really cool. Obviously that man knows the games
for sure, and that certainly helped us actually get to the first boss wave at level 10.
Sounds like Collusion to me.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, we couldn't shit talk Rod's game because he was right there. God, this sucks.
He was literally keeping us alive. Fortunately, he's not in this room, so we can like talk shit now.
No, exactly. Both Jean-Luc and Alexa fell a couple of times, although we'll get into that in a second. So yeah, Gears of War for Horde Mode 3.0. I think the first thing to sort of talk about with this is that like when the Gears like deathmatch beta came out, I was kind of like, it's very similar to the old one, which is kind of good, but also like there's nothing new that's really bringing me to this.
This series needs something new.
Yeah, for sure. And I was actually quite surprised about how different Horde Mode is this time around.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I'm certainly more excited about Horde Mode than the traditional multiplayer, because I remember playing, even before the beta, I went to a preview event and got hands-on time with the traditional competitive multiplayer modes.
Right.
And was kind of like, okay, yeah, this like feels a bit like older Gears, and it's kind of fun, but yeah, there's nothing really exciting about it at all. But Horde Mode was a lot more fun. I kind of instantly connected with the new ideas they've layered on top. I mean, it felt like the Horde modes I remember and all the emergent craziness of everything happening around you, but there's a lot more strategy on top, which I really appreciated. So this I connected with way more than what I've played of the competitive multiplayer.
I guess the biggest change so far is that they've straight up got like classes which are sort of, there was always like specific, in a weird way, like the old Horde modes were, you know, it was such a level playing field because you were all doing the same thing, and then the only thing that like differentiated people was skill. In this one, you've straight up got like roles to play. There's a soldier, a sniper, a scout, a heavy, and an engineer.
Yeah.
Speak to one of those. What about the scout or the engineer?
Well, and it's important to note that like you are hard selecting a class at the beginning. It's not like, oh, you can like customize your load. Like, no. You are picking a class. And what that means is it's different for every class. But a really good example is like the scout class. So part of Horde Mode is building fortifications and buying weapons and upgrades and things like that. So you need currency to do that. The scout gets double the amount of currency of any other character type when he picks up a power icon, which is like the currency of the game.
Yeah, it's like energy, they kept referring to it or something. Yeah.
So you get way more mileage out of each power icon if the scout is the person picking it up.
But the scout is the squishy one.
He's the squishy one, so that's why it's like the heavy's job and the sniper's job to keep him alive. But it's a good example of how a role impacts the game because, yeah, anybody can pick up a power icon, but clearly it works out best for everyone if the scout is the person doing it because you get double the points or double the currency for doing that.
So yeah, then you've got the sniper class, which is pretty obvious. You've got the heavy, which can like spawn with something like a boom shot, which would otherwise just be a pickup. The engineer then is, I guess, predominantly building.
Yeah, they get a discount on like everything. So kind of like how the scout gets double currency, the engineer, anything they build is cheaper.
Right.
So you kind of want that person hanging back by the fabricator, which is a kind of a new. It's basically what you build your base around. At the start of every match, a fabricator spawns. You could move it wherever, and as soon as you put it down,
that's
the
where
waves start. But that is your one-stop shop for like upgrades, and actually you can revive allies that have died that you didn't successfully revive during a round, and it's also where you purchase all of your fortifications. So yeah, the engineer needs to kind of hang out by the fabricator and be buying stuff so that you preserve your currency supply.
And what type of stuff are you buying? Can you remember some of those bits? I remember it was like
well, I mean, like you can buy like at the very basic level, you can buy like barbed wire and fortify your immediate area, but that's like the really basic. You can build turrets, which cost a little bit more. By the end, you can be building like Oh God, I'm trying to remember what the really high level stuff was. Unfortunately, we only got to play the first 10 waves.
Yeah,
so as
out
with
50.
Exactly. So traditionally there are 50 waves. That it's true again here. Every 10th wave is a boss wave. We only played the first 10, so we didn't see a lot of the really high level stuff that you can build. But yeah, suffice to say that as you play, you get more and more powerful options. They just cost more.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can really fortify your position. And actually, one really good piece of advice that Rod gave me that I was able to write about a little later is the first 40 waves, you're not just trying to survive, you're trying to prepare for the final 10.
Totally,
Because
yeah.
they are far and away the hardest. Like by the time you get to the final 10 waves, all enemies have like 2.5 times health, 2.5 times damage, 2.5 times accuracy, and there's like bigger boss characters mixed in with the other characters. So the final 10 waves are just like built to destroy
Yeah, so
you.
there's this weird mechanic where you can basically like stick weapons in a locker. So if you
Yeah,
have
that's
like
new as
a
well.
boss wave or something that comes in, if they drop their weapons, you can just like get them and then actually, you know what? I'm not going to use this now. I'm going to stick it here.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're oddly like, you know, the little fortification thing that you create, you're sort of like arming it, and so that you can use it, I guess, for the best strategy for the last like 10 waves.
And what's really cool, I didn't mean to interrupt, but just one last quick thing about the gun locker, it'll actually reload any weapon that's in it. So if you have like a rocket launcher, so it takes a little while, but if you have a rocket launcher and 8 rockets and you fire off 7, in older Gears games, it's like, well, you've got 1 left and good luck. But now, if you, before firing that last shell off, you put it in a gun locker, over time, you'll get more rockets and get more mileage out of that gun. So again, behooves you to play strategically and think about what you're doing.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Peter.
No, I was just saying, this all sounds like really good. I mean, Horde mode for me was always one of those things where like I got why people liked it, but for me, like maybe a couple hours in, I would feel like just not interested. Like, okay, I got it. I just need to kind of get better. But this sounds like you have a whole range of options to really just like strategize and change how you play the game, which again, this series really needs that. So that's very good to hear.
Yeah, and even then the classes themselves, once you've actually picked one on the menu, it kind of a little bit deep maybe for our first run through, but they had these skill cards that you basically assign to your character, which gives you like boosts on specific weapons or, you know, gives you like more energy if you use, like I was the heavy, and if I did like a one-on-one takedown instead of like shooting them from afar, then I'd got like 3 times as much energy drop.
There's some really cool ones. Yeah. Well, the nice thing about those, the gear cards, is you assign those before rounds. You're not really messing with them. Like once you're in the match, you're just focusing on not dying. But it's cool that a lot of those give you kind of new ways to play. And actually, one of the things I really like about the gear cards is they're very risk reward. There are some really basic ones that are general that can be applied to any class, but they're kind of less powerful, but they're applicable to anybody and they're easier to use. But then you'll get ones like the sniper had an explosive headshot ability. So if you're confident that you can consistently land headshots, that is a really amazing card because you do way more damage. But it's also like, how confident are you that you can consistently land a headshot when there are people like rushing at you? So again, kind of a risk reward. You get less out of it if you're not able to actually like land headshots, but when you do, it's like a huge bonus. So you can decide ahead of time. There's a little bit of strategy even among the various classes.
I was pleasantly surprised. I feel like it's probably, like in a weird way, this requires a bit more teamwork than the old Horde mode kind of did as well. Like you really need to make sure you're not like stepping on each other's toes. That was one thing I felt like, especially because the map wasn't that big the one we played. You can see the gameplay of it now. We were kind of all on top of each other for a lot of it, and like, you know, a lot of communication with like some coming down the stairs, some coming from the red barn.
Totally. A lot of yelling.
And I can't imagine that like by the end there's probably a lot more, you know, in the last 10 rounds.
Oh god, again, this was the first 10 rounds. By the end, I'm sure we'd be screaming our heads off at each other.
So yeah, cautiously optimistic about Horde mode. What do you think, Peter, just from like listening to us talking about it?
I guess just like what, you know, like I said a second ago, like this sounds like a great sort of injection, like shot in the arm for this series. Because I kind of like am, like I like the environment and like the setting and some of the story for the Gears series, but I always would maybe play the campaign and then put it aside. This actually sounds like I may like this better than the main game. I mean, I don't know that. My only basis for that is that this sounds really interesting. So yeah, I'm curious to see how this maybe impacts the balance of where the coalition is paying a lot of their efforts during development.
Yeah, for sure.
I've seen a lot of excitement just in the comments on the articles we've been putting up. People saying like, "Yeah, I play Gears 4 Horde mode." And one thing I also mentioned in our impressions video, I appreciate that this is a very like true Horde mode. It is like a small area and there are waves of enemies because the next like The other really big kind of horde mode-ish thing I can really think of is Call of Duty Zombies mode, which has evolved so much that it's not really a horde mode anymore. Like, you're actually running through a level. It's not really a point defense or like tactical thing anymore. So I appreciate that this is very like back to roots, but with some new stuff layered on top. It seems like a really smart approach for how they're doing it.
For sure. You can learn more about Gears of War 3. Sorry, 4. Gears of War.
Well, it's a Horde 3.0.
Live television, folks.
In Gears of War 4. It's a little confusing.
Gears of 4, Horde 3.0. Hold on to your butts. Coming to you sometime soon. Didn't check the release date. Oh well.
October 11th.
Fire me.
It's October 11th.
October 12th. Thank you, Scott Butterworth. You can check out more about it with Scott's. Was it October 12th? 11th? October 11th. Coming to you this October the 11th. Halloween. Just in time for Halloween and Valentine's Day. All right, that's it.